Thank you for joining, everybody. This is week three, technically week six, but talk number three of the year, going for 26. This is every other Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's live, which will get you obviously this talk and then any Q&A afterwards. I always try to leave a little bit of time to answer questions on any of the specific topics, but also anything in general, right? Any nutrition, fitness, health questions, problems that you have, just here to help. So anybody listening in the future, register to get those live. But today, our topic for the day are veggies. A little veggie up, right? A little play on what ready up. Easy way to eat more greens. And in this case, we won't talk about just greens, but vegetables in general. Simple ways to incorporate them into your meals, the different perks that they offer, uh, what advantages they have, what health benefits they have, and then different ways that we can start increasing the amount that we eat, not only from a volume perspective, but just to make them easier to cook, easier to eat, and not just force them down, but enjoy eating them as we go. That being said, before we really get started, I'd like to do a quick recap. Like I said, this is number three. For the recap of the first one, or for the view of the first one, head over to that one. But I try to recap the previous week's talk in a couple bullet points at the beginning. Last week we talked about protein, trying to follow a progression, working around the plate in this portion, what our meals should look like. Last week we talked about proteins. We talked about what are proteins. They're one of the three macronutrients. So you have proteins, you have carbs, and then you have fats. Proteins are important, one of the most important, and one of the ones that I think people leave out. Sometimes are the hardest to consume outside of veggies, but out of the macros, one of the harder ones to consume. And they're important because they allow muscles to rebuild and recover after exercise or just in general. And that comes from the amino acids that are contained within the protein themselves. We also talked about where they're found. Typically, meat is going to be your best option. And then we talked about different types of meat that would have them. We're ideally looking for leaner meats. So your chicken breasts, your turkeys, your pork tenderloins, not just pork, but pork tenderloins. Basically, leaner meats, they just have that lower fat content. It's mostly protein there. But that being said, if protein is something you struggle with, we're looking at a spectrum. Everything that we talk about is a spectrum and doing just a little bit better, a little bit more than we're currently doing, and just slowly building up rather than going the yo method where it's all in, crash diet, lose a bunch of weight, and then back to the way we were before, gaining all that weight back. So incremental increases. So just again, to get the protein just a little bit better each time, focus on how can we get a little bit more, then how can we get a little better quality of proteins. And then how much do we need to eat? So about 30% of your intake roughly should be protein if you're weighing and measuring, which most people who are listening to these are not. 1 gram per pound is the kind of rough rule of thumb. So if you weigh 180 pounds, you should get 180 grams. If you're eating 3 meals a day, that's 60 grams of protein, which is about 2 or 3 servings. So 2 or 3 of the palms if you're doing the hand portions or quarter plates, about 2 or 3 of those. So about half a plate of protein, which is a decent amount. Again, most people are not getting enough. And then final thing, protein powders question I get a lot. Can I just have protein powder instead of the proteins? So the protein powders are great in the fact that if you're a little bit short of protein for the day, you can grab that and it's much easier to consume. It's not as filling, which is also a downside because protein can be very filling, which will keep you from eating the stuff that we probably shouldn't be eating as much of, like snacks and desserts. So the protein powders are really great. They have their use. Again, they're good supplements, but they do not replace full foods of proteins of chickens and all that stuff because that do come with added benefits. And then we talked about the two different kinds of proteins, which I think was one of the biggest takeaways that I got feedback on and that we had a discussion on after last week's call was the whey protein, which most people are familiar with. That's the protein that's fast digesting. So most people eat it or drink it after they work out because there's amino acids that protein will get to the body very quickly within 45 to 60 minutes, which allows us to recover better. And then the casein is the other one, and that's our slow digesting. That's one that you typically would want to have before bed or before time where you might have a long stretch where you're not going to be eating. I do it before bed. It becomes a little thicker. I wouldn't do it as a shake necessarily, but it thickens up a little bit more so you can have it at dessert. At least that's how I do it. But again, it allows that slow release of the protein while you're sleeping at night to help with recovery. Maybe a not so quick recap, but that's the recap of last week. If you want to dive into more of that again, go back and watch that. Anybody that's registered has access to all of these recordings. So let's move on to our topic for today, which is veggies, right? Look at this. Some cauliflower, some broccoli. Not, in my opinion, not the most appetizing looking foods. And I think that's part of the problem is that there you can get around proteins are a little bit easier with the chicken and the beef, but these like they're eating trees, right? So how can we make these a little more appetizing, which is what we'll dive into. And it goes back to when you're a kid or if you have kids, like trying to get your kids to eat it, or as a kid, having your parents trying to make you eat it is one of those things that I think we can all relate with. It's like one of those things where I'm not going to eat this. And it's like, fine, you're going to bed hungry then. And then you go to bed hungry and you're like, was it really worth it? Is that a hill I'm willing to die on? As a kid, probably. But even as adults, when nobody's making you eat it and you're making your kids eat it, it's important to figure out how can we make it appetizing, both not only for myself, but if I want my kids to do it, I'm gonna have to do it too. So if that kind of resonates, this is gonna be perfect for you because we can learn how to make it at least look more appetizing, taste better, and easier to cook as well. So let's talk about more about how like benefits and what we can do to eat them a little bit easier. Before we do that, though, quick little fun facts. So it takes somebody 7 to 10 times before they can decide they really like it, right? It takes them 7 or 10 times to try it before that they can like definitively say, yeah, this is good. I like this. Let's go for it. Or really, no, I don't like it. Which hopefully my wife doesn't watch this because she's been trying to get me to eat fruits in general, but more fruits. And I usually try it once and go, no, I don't like it. I don't want it anymore. And since I'm not her son, she can't yell at me. So if she watches this, probably something she's going to get on me about. But that's besides the point. The other thing is, fun little fact. I was hoping that this was going to loop, but it did not. 90% of the United States does not get the proper amount of vegetables, which kind of thinking about it seems like a lot, but thinking about it, looking back, you can see if you look around what meals typically look like, especially if you're eating out, not full of veggies, right? There might be a little bit, but not a full serving. It doesn't help that depending on where you live, depending on which country you are in, most people are probably in the United States, but different countries have different recommendations. So whenever there's a wide range of things, especially with the internet, you can get a lot of different opinions. The United States recommends 3 to 5 servings, Australia is 8, and then Denmark is 6. So you can see the range there. Of course, the United States is on the smaller side of it, and yet 90% of us still cannot get the right amount. So let's talk about some benefits. And we know that they're good for us, but why? What do they provide? They pack full of essential vitamins, minerals, fibers, antioxidants. They support immune systems, boost energy levels, and then they maintain overall health. Also, they aid in digestion. And more importantly, just like protein makes us feel full, these really make us feel full and they keep us full for longer. And really, the most beneficial part of it is the volume that you'd have to eat to get a lot of calories in, right? You might have heard the term empty calories, and that comes from you eat it and there's not a lot of calories in it, that by the time you have to digest it and your body goes through it, that it burns energy just by digesting it and it becomes a net or negative, right? If you eat 100 calories worth of veggies, it might take 105 calories to burn all that off, right? Because it's going to take a while for it to break everything down. So that's one of the advantages and a comparison for you on the volume it takes to get a certain number of calories. One Oreo cookie is 53 calories, which kind of surprised me. I thought it'd be more, honestly. But when you look at that same 53 calories, how much broccoli would that take? And that's 1.5 cups. So think about how much 1.5 cups of anything is, right? And that's your 53 calories. It's the same as an Oreo. Now, if you had that Oreo, how quickly or how full would you be from that Oreo? Probably not at all, right? If you've heard of a clear in the sleeve, just eat the whole sleeve of cookies. And even that, you might not be full. Your stomach might hurt, but you're probably not full. Whereas if you eat a cup and a half of broccoli, you're probably gonna be pretty stuffed and it's very little calories. So let's dive into a couple of the tips here. First one, eating a variety. I have a little rainbow here, eat the rainbow, right? And I'm not talking Skittles, unfortunately, but eating the rainbow eating the different colors of vegetables. So let's dive into why do we want to eat that. Obviously, different colors. So it's a variety of fruits or vegetables, and that's always good to get a variety, but it's because each color has different vitamins, minerals, and all of that stuff vary between them. For example, red, your tomatoes, your red peppers, they have a lot of lycopene, vitamin C, stuff that's good for heart health. We can eat those and have stuff good for our heart. Orange, so oranges, carrots, squash, any of that stuff has beta carotene, which turns into vitamin A, which is good for your eyesight and your immune system. I know growing up, I had bad eyes, but that's genetics. I always thought that if I ate more carrots, it would make my eyes magically better. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, but it does help keep that eyesight a lot better because of the vitamin A. Now, greens, your spinach, your broccoli, they have vitamin K, they have folate that promotes bone health and then also helps with eyesight as well. And then our white vegetables, your cauliflower that has a lot of allicin and quercetin, I think is how it's pronounced. Heart health and reducing inflammation is what that will do for you. But outside of all of that, again, we're talking about the scale, the gradient. How can we get a little bit better? The most important thing is if you're not eating any veggies, eat whatever one is going to taste the best or get you to eat it consistently. It doesn't matter if it's a variety, it doesn't matter what color it is, as long as you're eating it consistently. If you're having none, one is better than nothing. If you're having one or two, maybe we jump that up to three or four. And then if we're hitting that consistently, then we can start playing around with the different colors, the different types of vegetables that we can eat. So that's really the most important. I did a post a few weeks ago, or maybe it was earlier this week, about what's the most important vegetable to eat. And it's really just the one that you're going to eat consistently. Doesn't really matter after that point. Let's build the foundation first, and then we can get creative and get cute with everything that we're doing and everything that we're eating. Second thing is how we prepare them. I think this is the most important one because how you prepare them will affect how they taste. Depending on how you do it, if you boil it, they might be soggy and mushy, and that texture's not enjoyable for most people. In addition, if you just steam it and then eat it like that, it probably doesn't taste that great because you could put some seasoning in it. In addition to trying different varieties of colors, how can we try different ways of cooking it? And I think it's very easy for people to overthink it. Really, like this, you could pan fry it, right? Toss a little bit of oil in there, right? Is oil the best thing ever? No. If we use olive oil, that's a step in the right direction. But if that's, again, the difference between not eating it and eating it, I'm willing to do that. So toss a little bit of oil in the pan, get it hot, and then saute it. Right? At least you get a little bit of oil in there. Toss some salt and pepper. Try different seasonings. Try different pan fry it, air fry it, put it in the oven and roast it. Anything just a little bit different. Again, veggies are pretty easy to cook because you can just toss them in the oven, mix them up every once in a while, and they'll roast up pretty well. Then you can try different sauces. Spray some Chick-fil-A sauce in there, right? Barbecue sauce, whatever it'll take. Again, it's not about perfection. It's not getting to where we want to at the end, but if it's going to move us one step closer, then let's do it that way. And you can cook them while you eat or while you cook other things. Again, just toss them in the oven and then they'll be ready to go. So, whatever it takes to make them as easy as possible. And then my last and final tip, another good one, is just adding them into something. So I like to call it hiding them, especially for kids. My son sometimes we just hide it into a little casserole. He doesn't even think twice about it. For breakfast, I have the picture on the left here is that breakfast casserole, put in some eggs in there, chopping up some peppers, some onions, tomatoes, put some bacon in there, some sausage in there. You won't even be able to taste them, but you'll be getting those servings in. Casseroles are a really easy way to do that. So it's something I highly recommend trying. It's not only easy to prepare as a full meal, it'll give you meals throughout the whole week, but again, you can hide those veggies inside of something where you don't even taste it. That way the texture's not an issue, the seasoning's not an issue, the cooking method's really not even an issue. It's all right there. The other thing is something like tacos on the right. So putting something where, again, hiding it in there, you can top it with something. In this case, tomatoes, lettuce that's on there. That's the most important thing. Let's just add a little bit into something that we're already having. If you get a hoagie, don't just do meat. How can we add lettuce and tomatoes and onions and peppers and all of that stuff? Whereas, again, just one thing at a time, right? And chances are if you do that, if you have a taco, you're not tasting the individual tomato as much. Adding them in is going to be super helpful and a kind of cheat way to at least get things moving in the right direction. And again, especially good for kids. Some quick FAQs, typical things that I get asked or I see get asked a bunch. We talked about servings. How many servings should I eat every day? And we talked about the United States recommending 3 to 5. Just getting a veggie every meal is at a minimum where we want to end up. But again, it's not about starting there, especially if you're starting from, I'm not getting any. How can we just get one in? Right? Or if we're getting one in, how can we get two? Just a little bit better than what we're currently doing. Do that for a couple of weeks, then increase the servings in a day, and then you can start going from there and trying different ways and different varieties and all that, right? So again, technically 3 to 5 servings. So really just getting a little bit of veggies with every meal, but really just focusing on how can I do a little bit better than I am right now. What if I don't like the taste? We touched on it a little bit. The cooking methods will matter, right? You can air fry it, you can oven roast it, you can boil it, you can steam it, but really it's the seasoning and the sauces that might make the difference. Again, not perfection, but how can we add a little bit of flavor to it? There's tons of pre-made seasonings that you can buy. Montreal steak seasoning, toss it on there. Salt and pepper, something as simple as that everybody should have in their kitchen. And then again, barbecue sauce, ketchup, mustard, whatever it takes. I dip my carrots into some mustard. Perfect. Like it's going to get me to eat them more consistently. It adds that taste of the mustard and it gets it in. And that's all that really matters. And then the last one are frozen or canned, as nutritious as fresh. When they pick them for canned or frozen, they typically pick them at their peak ripeness. You're going to have the most amount of nutrients and minerals in the can or in the frozen bag as possible. The only thing you have to watch out for is sometimes they add extra preservatives, extra salt, so you get that extra, maybe not necessarily wanted things in them. But again, at the end of the day, if frozen and canned are going to be convenient and easy for you, it's that step in the right direction that we want to go for. Ultimately, just including a variety and eating them consistently is going to be the most important thing. And then in our Facebook group, somebody had mentioned, because we were talking about how we're having this today, that they recommended trying a carrot from the store in the off season. So right now it's winter time, trying a carrot from the store there and then going to a local farm and picking it fresh and having that, just tasting the difference between the two and how significant it is. So obviously fresh is always going to taste the best. I had green bean patch or grew some green bean plants before and nothing was better than going and picking them right from the garden and then frying them up and then having them with dinner. And they're so much better, so much more tasty, and it seems like it takes less work to make them taste good as opposed to something that's store bought that maybe has been picked for a few days. So wherever you can, get them fresher. They'll add a little bit of taste as well. And then finally, wrapping things up, a couple of things that I have going on with my partner Nathaniel. We have a Fit Fatherhood Facebook group. So that's just focused on dads improving their health and fitness while you're juggling all the other stuff. You have your family, your career, and then your health and fitness, taking care of yourself while doing those other things, because sometimes we let ourselves take care of everybody else before we take care of ourselves. And then if you need any other help with nutrition, shoot me a DM, if you register for this, send me an email. I'm happy to help, see where I can help, do some other coaching on the side as well. But ultimately, the passion project is the Fit Fatherhood group. Just getting more dads together, working on health and fitness, lots of different range of people. We have real estate people, business owners, just regular W-2 employees, all that wide range. But everybody looking to get together. We get on call at least once a week and just hang out and have a good spot for dads to hang out and talk about sometimes really nothing, but really just focusing on building each other up, having that accountability and support. So quick little 20-minute talk on vegetables. Not the most exciting topic, but super important. Hopefully that was helpful. If you want to leave a comment, again, question, please do. Otherwise, thanks for joining me over the last 20 minutes. I appreciate the support and glad to help.